Hello and welcome to the Coaching Podcast, Coaching for Success in Sport and Business. Your host is Emma Doyle, the energy and high performance under pressure coach who is a world leader in unleashing human potential. Buckle up for this high octane session. Let them have it, coach.
If your emotional abilities aren't in hand, if you don't have self-awareness, if you're not able to manage your distressing emotions, then no matter how smart you are, you're not going to get very far, said Daniel Goleman. Today, you are in for a treat. Actually, you're always in for a treat on the Coaching Podcast. We have David Cory, who's the founder and leadership development consultant, known for his expertise in EI to individual and organisational performance and improvement. Since 1998, David and his team have worked on the implementation of EI development programs with leaders in the most progressive organisations globally. David has been a keynote speaker at conferences all over the world, and today he is going to share with us a fantastic conflict management formula. He's going to have some great one-liners for you to put automatically into your coaching toolkit, such as share it, don't wear it. And please remember, this season of the Coaching Podcast is brought to you by Sam, the AI tool built for the coaching world. If you're a coach, Sam takes the stress out of marketing so you can spend more time doing what you love, which of course is coaching. And if you're looking for a coach, think of Sam as a matchmaking service without the romance, helping you find the right coach at the right time. Discover how simple it is at trysam.ai. Let's get on to the show. G'day everybody and welcome to the Coaching Podcast. David Cory is in the house. He's our leadership development coach, trainer and consultant, known for his expertise in applying the concept of emotional intelligence, EIEQ, very dear to our heart on this show. And you know, David, one of the questions I love to ask when I'm running my workshops is who was the most influential leader and why? So let's kick it off with that. When you think about your career, I know it's spanning now maybe a couple of decades now. Who comes to mind and why?
I was an employee for a very short period of time in my life. It was 6 years, and I worked for an amazing guy who taught me everything I know about leadership. He just had an amazing way of dealing with every situation. And I learned many tips and tricks from him that I still use today. I realized very early in life that I just needed to be out of a company, an organization, and I needed to be working for myself. And so that happened quite early on for me.
And what would you say that he instilled within you?
Oh, just he was very emotionally intelligent without using that terminology. He took an interest in me personally. He challenged me to rise to occasions that I felt like I had no business being involved in. He was always made time for me, and we do this exercise in workshops all over the world. It always turns out the same. We ask people to tell us about the best leader they ever had. And as an example, I use him. I said that, I say that he had an open door policy, and he didn't just leave his door open. If he saw you pacing back and forth in front of his doorway, he'd wave you in. He'd be on the phone with the long curly cord, and he'd motion for you to sit down. And then he would say, wait till I get off the phone. And then he would get off the phone, and then he would say, what can I do for you? And just his availability, I felt so supported and cared for, and like I could, get the information that I need, the approvals, etc., to do what I needed to do quickly. I always really appreciated that.
Yeah. And, so often it sounds like we often start our workshops with a very similar question, right? Sometimes people don't always give positive stories as well. Who is the most influential leader you've ever had? Your question's slightly different. Who's the best leader? When I also get answers on the flip side, and it's so interesting to me because usually when it's a positive answer, 80% of the time, those skills and those qualities that have been instilled in that person are nothing to do with knowledge, influence, dominance, power. Maybe 20% of the time, sometimes those words pop out, or process, right? But it's almost always emotional intelligence, the soft skills that come up time and time again. And all the skills you just mentioned then definitely highlight that. So I guess what I want to go down the road of, well, let's define for those, I know EQ, actually that would be a good kick-off as well. Let's just define the two, because there is a difference, so that we're all on the same page for this interview. Let's go there first, David. What are your thoughts?
Sure. So EI is being intelligent about emotions. Unfortunately, it's become a thing. And the problem with that is that people think that it's something that you can have or not have, include or not include, pay attention to or not pay attention to. But what I like about emotional intelligence, the term, is it best describes how our brains actually function. That we don't do anything without emotion. All information that that is processed by our brains has an emotional component to it. And if we don't pay attention to that, then we're not fully leveraging the information available to us. And of course, EQ is a measure of how well or how poorly we are using, paying attention to, and incorporating the emotions that are available to us.
Yeah, and I love that you've even sort of highlighted the growth mindset approach there in terms of it's a skill. We can become more emotionally intelligent, more so, obviously, everything, not obviously, I take that back. Everything begins with self-awareness and assumptions. Be mindful of assumptions, coaches listening out there. All right, let's now just shift into skiing. The Winter Olympics is currently on. I know you had a background in skiing yourself. So take me back to a young David and your foundation of sport, especially as it relates to emotions, such as how am I ever going to get down this run, or something quite emotively scary about skiing. Take it anywhere you want. What are your thoughts
Absolutely,
there?
yeah. I lived for skiing as a young person, and as soon as I was old enough, I got my ski instructor's license and worked at some of the top resorts in the world, including in the German Alps. I went over to Germany specifically because I'd studied German in high school and I wanted to become fluent in German, and I got a job with a German-speaking ski school. The very first day, our boss handed all the ski instructors a pair of cross-country skis and poles and boots, and we were putting these on thinking, oh, I guess we're going to go for a cross-country ski. This is going to be fun, because we were all downhill skiers. And instead of going for a cross-country ski, we headed up the mountain. So we all got in a big tram with our cross-country skis, and we were going up to the top of the mountain. I'm thinking, what are we doing? So we got our cross-country skis on at the top of a very steep long run at the top of the mountain. He said, I want you to feel what it's going to be like for your clients when they come to learn how to ski for the first time. We fell, and these were wooden cross-country skis, no edges, and we were slipping and sliding and falling all over each other all down the mountain. It served its purpose to learn, to grow, to develop. We have to get out of our comfort zone. And of course, Abraham Maslow is famous for saying to choose courage over comfort. And we have to do that for anything to happen for us in our life. We have to go out into the world, and the world is stressful. We have to pick up the phone, and getting people on the phone or getting them on a Zoom meeting. This is stressful. It's challenging. And again, we can stay comfortable, but then there's no growth. There's no development. There's no connection. There's no learning. And we frequently talk about the risk-reward equation when we talk about building relationships using emotional intelligence. And we have to, choose the courage over comfort to be vulnerable. And I don't know if you've ever looked this up, Emma, but vulnerable, if you look up the word, means to open oneself up to harm. And who wants to do that? Nobody.
No one.
So we don't like vulnerability. Even Brene Brown says, you know how I feel about vulnerability? I hate vulnerability. And yet it's necessary and required for us human beings to connect with each other.
All right. If you don't mind, let's go vulnerable. Let's go there.
Sure.
You shared something with me off air, which, certainly these are topics that never really come up on our show. And with huge vulnerability, I'm sure there's huge growth. Do you mind sharing your a personal story for us?
Yeah, I don't mind, Emma, because, and I don't mind sharing because I think it's important. These are things that we generally don't talk about. And yet there's all kinds of people that will be able to relate to this, to what I shared with you. And it has to do with my son, Ben. My son, Ben, was an amazing human being. He was tall and athletic and good looking. He was absolutely expert on the snowboard. Snowboarding was his chosen way down the mountain, and we lost him at the age of 23 in 2015 in a tragic accident. And there I was, someone who was supposed to be an expert in emotional intelligence, experiencing deep grief. And I think it's really sad that we don't prepare human beings for tragedy and trauma. We only learn how to deal with pain when we're in it, which is really not the ideal way to learn how to be in touch with our emotions and to share our emotions with others. If we're lucky enough, we'll find our way to a therapist, a counselor, a group. We'll be lucky enough for someone to create space for us to share all of the emotion that comes with those extreme emotions. There's a training program here in Western Canada for first responders. And what happened was the first responder organization was tired of seeing their colleagues commit suicide. Imagine what first responders see on a daily basis. They see tragedy, trauma, death, destruction, loss, people in extreme pain. And if they'd never talk about that, what it's like to experience that incredible extreme emotion, we know what the end result is: mental ill health at the best, and suicide at worst. And I don't know if you've heard these stats, but here in North America, men commit suicide at a rate 4 times greater than women, and in Europe it's 5 times. And so we are socialized as men to not talk about our emotions. Big boys don't cry. Well, if we don't examine and dismantle that belief, it's gonna continue to impact us, and we will be less emotionally intelligent as a result. What I learned from my son's death was that grief is not something that you go through. There's not another side. There is just living with grief. I learned that unless you talk about it, it will be much more difficult, and it will affect you in ways that you won't ever really understand. And the idea that the only way out is through. The only escape, the only way to find joy again, the only relief is talking about that again with a coach, with a therapist, with a group, with a counselor, whoever that happens to be. But it is the only way out, is through discussing and talking about what it is like to experience that loss, to experience that grief.
One of your sayings, correct me if I'm wrong, that I heard on a previous interview, you said, "Share it, don't wear it."
That is the slogan for the paramedic training program.
Right.
That is their tagline, their slogan, and that is what they encourage each other to do.
First of all, thank you for sharing that. Like I said, we don't often have stories like that on the coaching podcast, and there's something in there about releasing your emotions. There's something about not just trapping. Obviously, my background as a high performance tennis coach, we would say 3 seconds. In golf, you've got 10 steps after the shot. The superpower of great athletes, if we just change gears there for a minute, is how fast they can let it go. They feel the raw emotion of, yeah, that hurt, or that was an unforced error, or I missed that, and I know I can make that, and they feel the emotion, and then they're able to hit the switch.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's so many powerful lessons there around micro resiliency tools in the moment for athletes and in the workplace. So let's go there about emotions, right? Let's start sport first. How long do you think it takes to be able to dissipate an emotion to then be able to think logically about what you need to do next?
Yeah, it's a great question, Emma, and I love or I find it somewhat amusing when people talk about mental rehearsal in sport, uh, because it's actually emotional rehearsal. We want to rehearse the emotions, and of course, so apropos that the Olympics are going on right now, and I think about elite athletes at the Olympics. And as you know, for someone to win gold, all their stars have to align. All their training, all their physical health, and almost mostly their emotions. If they're stressed, if they're worried about something, if there's some anxiety or unaddressed anger or something else, it's going to affect their physical performance, as you know, as everybody knows. And yet we don't talk about the critical importance of noticing emotions, recognizing them, labeling them. This idea of name it to tame it that Daniel Siegel made famous. I'm sure he didn't invent it, but this idea that we need to recognize and understand the emotions we're experiencing. We need to name them. And naming them allows us to communicate those in a more precise way to others. And when we are able to communicate that to someone and talk about what that's like, then we can let it go. So emotions need to get expressed, and if they don't get expressed verbally by us, as we develop our skills to do so, then they get expressed physically, and sometimes detrimentally when it comes to sports.
Absolutely. So if you're not able to talk to someone, some of the release strategies, one we've done for years is just lifting up a elastic band around your wrist and then just snapping it down. There's other tools as well, isn't there, that you can release, depending on your personality, out loud or but doing something physically, anchoring that to be able to not snap out of it. It's more of accept it and move on, because you can't push it away.
Or say, I'm going to set this aside for now, do what I need to do, and I'm going to come back to that.
Yeah.
And like we've discussed first responders, think of physicians. Physicians don't have the emotional bandwidth to consider this person that's on the operating room table in front of them, to consider that this is the center of someone's universe, some family's universe. What they do have available to them is what are those blood gases? What is the correct suture size? What is what device, tool, etc. do I need in this moment to do this job? And unfairly of us mere humans that we put on physicians this demand that by the time they walk down the hall after losing this person that's the center of some family's universe, that they are in the correct emotional state to be able to convey that news in a caring and empathic way. So I don't know how athletes in those moments or physicians transition from one activity to another, but it starts with conscious awareness.
Mm.
And I think you mentioned it. We do nothing effectively without awareness and intention. So once we are aware that these things are happening to us, that these emotions are swirling around,
Mm.
that this one is waiting in the wings, or when we're, we watched the big air competition yesterday. It was in snowboarding, and it was so exciting. But and it was the women's events, and but each one of those young women, as they're taking off down that steep run and heading for the jump. What must be going through their mind? How do they set aside this one woman, the one woman from Great Britain? She had a horrible accident where she was where she lost 20% of her blood. They said, I remember that. And imagine that there she is doing the same activity again, going to take this huge jump, knowing that this has put her in the hospital in the past. How do you set aside that? You have to acknowledge it, notice it, be aware of it, and then knowingly, with awareness and intention, set that aside so that you can see the way clear to do what you need to do in the moment. This
Yeah.
is being intelligent about emotions instead of stuffing them down, instead of ignoring them or avoiding them or denying that you even have them or talking yourself out of them, to say, okay, I'm feeling this way. I'm feeling this nervousness, this anxiety, this excitement, or whatever it is. And isn't it interesting how similar excitement and anxiety are? They differ in what emotion researchers call cognitive appraisal. So how are we thinking about the stimulus? How are we thinking about the match? How are we thinking about the event? How are we thinking about that? And if we're thinking this is my opportunity to win gold, we might be feeling more excitement. If we're feeling I can't screw this up, then we may be feeling more anxiety. So it's about that way that we think about a stimulus, and we can change how we think about stimuli.
Including the gentleman who won gold in the Louvre, and the night before he slept awful because the pillow, the shape of the pillow. So of course he's his body's not feeling great on the first day of the run, and then of course he goes and makes a change. Right? He could have easily used that as a story, used that as an excuse to put that ahead of how he was feeling. So again, the internal dialogue is well, let me ask you this question. In your years of experience, does the mindset create the emotion, or does the emotion create the mindset? What comes first?
It's a good question. And it's about the type of stimulus and the type of response in us. So as you know, emotions are designed to give us more information about our environment. And how we think about stimulus, as I just mentioned, determines to some extent how we feel about it. So which comes first is an interesting thought, because again, there's this fast thinking and this slow thinking, and just reading a book about that right now. Daniel Kahneman actually is thinking fast and slow. So this is about the very quick operations of our physiology for feeling things, even when we don't even quite recognize or understand the stimuli yet. So we walk into a room, and something about that room is not sitting quite right with us. And this is what he would call fast thinking. I would reinterpret that as fast emotions. Those are those initial emotions that we can have. And then we add our cognitive appraisal of that situation, and we can shift how we're thinking, how we're feeling about that room, that person, that group of people, that event, that situation, that set of circumstances. So again, there's that. Wonderful book by Lisa Feldman Barrett, all about how the brain processes emotions. And she has much more technical detail around that in terms of the neuroscience. And she also differentiates between those things that are part of our autonomic nervous system, of course, the things that regulate breathing and circulation and venous capacity. And again, there's another aspect of emotion operating there. When it feels too hot in a room, our bodies do things to compensate. And I think that those are all part of our emotional world. Again, things that we're aware of, things we're not aware of, etc.
Yeah. So it depends.
That's the answer. That's the answer, Emma. It depends.
It depends. Yeah. No, it's what I believe. It depends on the person in front of me, on their map of the world, and on what comes first in any given situation. Environment and stimuli is the two things that came up for me there. All right, let's.
And culturally influenced, by the way, seeing as how we come from different cultures, culturally influenced. This is interesting. And Lisa Feldman Barrett makes the point that in other languages, they have words for emotions that we don't have in English. Again, just because of the cultural experience that they would have had, they would have attached different labels to different sensations. But by the way, this is the difference between the word feeling and the word emotion is the actual sensation. So when you talk about a feeling, what does that feel like? And we all know the color of anger and the temperature of anger. It's red, it's hot. And these are about the feeling of anger. But then there's the emotion of anger. What's the utilitarian purpose? Anger comes about as a result of goal blockage frequently, and the utilitarian purpose is that we put more effort into overcoming that blockage. And so there's a utilitarian purpose. But then we're talking about anger conceptually as an emotion. So emotion is kind of the conceptual word. We interchange them all the time, and it's not really that big a deal, but it is interesting.
Well, it's coming back to, name it to tame it, isn't it, as well? And I do think in the workplace, if you are experiencing a strong emotion, there's absolutely nothing wrong with standing up and saying, I need to take a minute, and removing yourself before reacting. I know you do a lot of work around, conflict management, and so just back on the culture, I've just returned from India, and one of my briefs with that company was to help them move from peer to performance. So culturally, they're all friends with each other, which is wonderful, but therefore no one's ever addressing feedback, no one's having conflict conversations. Everyone's comfortable and not courageous, back to your early words in the show. So let's go there next. How do you help your clients through conflict management?
Yeah, we teach them some basic skills. We go right back to and by the way, the model that we like for teaching people skills is the model that was originally created by Dr. Reuven Bar-On in the early 80s. It was first published as an assessment tool in 1997 by a Canadian company, MHS, and the tool is the Emotional Quotient Inventory. It is the best tool available for coaches. The EQI is the self-report version. The EQ360 is the multi-rater version, which we use with senior leaders. So in that model, there are 15 emotional skills. And these are not emotional skills that people have not heard of. They're all things people know about, have heard of, but they won't have seen them all in one place, like they are in the EQI model of emotional intelligence. And so we teach people about these skills, and specifically talking about conflict, we teach people about assertiveness and empathy, which are the two of the 15 emotional skills that are at the center of every conversation model that there is. So all the conversation models, there's books about each one of them: difficult conversations, crucial confrontations, fierce conversations, conversational intelligence, nonviolent communication. All these books have at the very center of all their models assertiveness and empathy. And the reason is that assertiveness, we need to say what we need to say. And assertiveness is different than emotional expression. Emotional expression is about your ability to express your emotions in general. And this is how people get to know you. And for leaders, that's critical because of trust. If people don't know you, they can't trust you. And so that's emotional expression. But again, we zero in on assertiveness, and what we teach people is a very simple little model. And what we did was we took John Gottman's XYZ model, and we changed it to the ABCD model. We added D for dialogue, and it's simply I feel A because of B. We're teaching people what it is that we're responding to and why we're responding the way we're responding to it emotionally. And then C is a request. What I would like is, what I would prefer is. And we say that everybody gets a request because everybody's worthy of being treated a certain way, with respect and dignity. And we don't have to, be doormats for others in relationships, that we need to be able to have those kinds of boundaries, or else the relationship is not good for anybody. And then finally, opening it up for dialogue. And so this simple skill is interesting, and I just taught a full day workshop with a bunch of they were Air Force personnel, and they were just looking at me like, I don't know if we can start talking about our emotions with our people, and that comes from that old idea that emotions don't belong in the workplace. And I say, okay, so you don't want dedication or passion or inspiration or motivation? Those are all emotions. Oh, we want those. We just don't want the other ones. Which ones don't you want? We don't want the anger, the sadness, we don't want those emotions. But it's all part of being human. It's all there. And so best is to acknowledge it. And I know that when people think about this model and being assertive with their employees, they're thinking of, and you used the example earlier, it was probably you were thinking of someone who was so angry that maybe it wouldn't be so great if they addressed someone in that moment, and absolutely taking a break is a good thing. But they're thinking of those kinds of emotions. But what about concern? What about saying, I feel concerned that you're not working up to standard? Now, if my boss came to me and told me that they were concerned about my performance, I would be leaning into that conversation. What do you mean? Tell me more. I want to understand this. And I think most people would. They wouldn't say, don't be concerned, or you shouldn't be concerned. They would say, oh, what are you concerned about? And so again, we can do a better job. And people say, why do I have to start with emotion? Can't I start with the facts? Some conversation models suggest that you do that. But when you say, I feel concerned, I feel worried about you, now you've got someone's attention. They are all in. They are totally into that conversation, and you got them. But if you start with the facts, it's like, why are we talking about this? What's going on here? I'm not so sure I follow. Starting with how you feel is critical and important for relationship purposes. Other people say, why can't I'm their boss. Why can't I just tell them what I need them to do? You can, but that's old style leadership. We really wanted to leave that leadership style in the 20th century, but it's followed us into the 21st century, and where nobody wants authoritarianism, nobody wants autocratic leadership, nobody wants command and control. Leave that for the military on the battlefield, or the first responders in an emergency situation. But every day to day in the office is not an emergent situation. There's not that sense of urgency. So we have time to invest in relationships, which is what we're trying to do with 21st century leadership, as you know, Emma.
Yeah, well, as it's a reason I run the podcast, to be honest. You just summarized why we do the show. It's a labor of love, and interestingly, open door coaching, that where I studied all those years ago, they worked with the Australian Air Force and they call it left and right of arc, right? So left of arc, someone's plane's going to go down. It needs to be direct and it needs to be autocratic and get the job done, right? And then what's the two extremes, and what lives in the middle? What lives in the middle is EI. This is how we get people to trust us. You've already mentioned, there go my people, I must follow them, for I am their leader. That's what lives in the middle there. And if even we're talking about companies like the Air Force, military, if they're adopting and embracing these skills, which, as you know, have been around since, what did you mention? The model is, did you say the 80s or the 90s?
Reuven Bar-On's model is the 80s, but
80s.
you can trace this back to the
Yeah.
beginning of
Yeah.
humans
Of
being with
course.
each other.
Of course.
In
Absolutely.
fact, you've heard the famous quote from Aristotle: "To be angry is easy, but to be angry with the right person at the right time and the right amount for the right reason, that's hard."
Super hard. And that's also,
600 BC, something like that.
yeah. And let's be honest, everyone avoids that even more so these days. They prefer to have your A, B, C, D in a text message. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, my thoughts on text messaging. I remember coming home one day and Ben and all his friends were sitting on the couch, all texting people who were not in the room. And yeah, it happens that people say things via text that they might not say in person. And I always tell people when they talk about email or text that you're limited with email and text. It's hard to convey emotions as well as one can in person. And so if that email's getting long, if it goes beyond a paragraph, maybe you need to get up and walk down to that person's office. Maybe you need to pick up the phone, where at least you have tone of voice. But don't try to work out anything by text or by email. It just can't. It doesn't happen very easily.
Mm.
Email is great for conveying information. Text is great for conveying information. And we talk a lot about that in our workshops. Actually, we talk about the fact that many of our interactions over the course of a day, those are transactional. One person's giving information to another for necessary reasons of the job, but it's not a relationship.
Yeah.
And this is the difference between transformational and transactional leadership. That transformational leadership has the power to transform organizations for the better. And every interaction is also an opportunity to shift culture. Do you want to maintain the culture that you have in that organization, or do you want to shift it in the direction that it should go? And leaders shift things in the direction they should go, even though it's difficult, even though it's challenging, even though it's awkward or
Mm.
uncomfortable.
And I would even reframe the word should into, it's a choice, isn't it? It's a choice to choose your
Mm,
direction.
yes,
Uh,
yes.
so what if you had to pick one EI muscle leaders most undertrain? You mentioned the 15 before. What's that one that we, maybe there's a blind spot there that we're not seeing, and why?
The one that gets them into trouble the most, Emma, and I'm sure you'll resonate with this, is empathy. They just don't understand people well. They don't take the time. And I always think it's interesting when a very senior leader who's gotten there because of their technical skills um, says, "What is with these people? They're all stressed out. That doesn't stress me out. Why does it stress them out?" And just not taking the time to understand. Or the CEO that I was coaching, whose company was being sued, and everybody was freaking out except him. And I said, "So what do you do?" And he said, "I just go around telling everybody everything's going to be fine." Imagine the missed opportunity to connect with those people, to have empathy for the fact that people are freaking out. When you don't talk about the freaking out, what is behind that? What's that about? And get specific about the emotions that are behind that freak out, you're missing an opportunity to connect. So again, that we call that toxic positivity, don't we?
We
Or
do.
toxic optimism, where someone is just, this is going to be fine, this is going to be great, everything's going to work out. It's not acknowledging the emotion that's there. It's not being with people while they are experiencing whatever they're experiencing. As a society, as a civilization, we are very bad at empathy. Just talk with people about how they feel when someone close to them has lost a relative. It's like, oh, I don't go to funeral. I don't. Funerals make me uncomfortable. and I don't know how to support my friend who's lost their husband or wife or child. We're just bad at it. And we don't, of course, have these lessons in school yet. We will in the future, but we don't have them yet. And so until that time, we're going to struggle along, being hopeless and helpless in supporting each other through the life's most difficult moments.
There's so much EI information out there now. It's not like you've already mentioned some book resources, and there's no reason for us not to. If this topic interests you and you're still like, EI, yeah, I know it, I've heard of it, but what's it really about? There's so much information out there. I studied under the Genos emotional intelligence model. I know I was listening to one of your models this morning. Five main core components. Like there's just no excuse for us not to be out there. And I can't wait for one of my nieces and nephews to come home and tell me that EI was our class today. Crazy Auntie M, they call me. All right, so it's in the future. It's coming, David. We are
Absolutely.
positively believing.
Interestingly, because you mentioned it, I met the creators of the GNOS at the first International Conference on Emotional Intelligence in the World in Chicago in 1999. And at the time, they were all professors at Swinburne University. And then later they left and formed their own company and
How cool is that?
and began publishing
That's cool.
the GNOS.
Cool.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. All right. In 1 to a maximum of 3 words, what do you think makes a great coach?
A great coach is one who has empathy. It's just a lot of empathy. And empathy propels curiosity. Wow, I was just thinking about the wonderful coach who coached me through coach training. She passed away, unfortunately, and she just cared so much about me. And I remember the question that cracked me open, that rocketed my professional and personal growth was, why won't you let me help you? I said, what do you mean? I'm answering all your questions. I'm working hard here. I'm doing everything that you tell me to do. And she said, no, you're not. You're holding back. You're protecting something. I don't know what it is. You're walled up. You're not letting me in. And I got off the call thinking, what is she talking about? I'm letting her in. The more I thought about it, the more I thought, nope, I am holding back. And when I started to not hold back, that's when I experienced the real value of her coaching.
Thank you for sharing that. And just a quick, caution, I don't know if that's the right word, on that mind opening question for you. Is one thing that we talk a lot about in the workplace coaching that I do is to be mindful of your why questions, because that's an example where you did go defensively initially and then you had a massive breakthrough. So coaches, leaders in the workplace, if you're listening to this, rapport. So if there's tremendous rapport, David knew how much this woman cared with empathy and curiosity, and she cared, and then she threw in a why question. So just a little...
Exactly. We had done quite a bit of coaching before that point.
Yeah, it was a little caveat there, because it's such a important... I'm sure everyone heard the why, and they're probably thinking, but Coach Ed, you always say avoid...
We're not supposed to ask why questions.
Yeah. So
exactly.
I think that's, also there's no hard and fast rules as well. Coaching is that adaptability, isn't it? You have to adapt in the moment to the emotion of, hey, do you think I can go there? If your intuition says go there, then by all means go there. So thank you for sharing that. All right, David, it is time for our rapid rally. So this is where I'm going to start the sentence and you're going to finish the sentence.
Okay.
All right. So the ones I've chosen for you are these. Here we go. Self-awareness is...
Self-awareness is knowing yourself so well that you know what has purpose and meaning for you.
regulation means?
Regulation means, it's a fancy word for impulse control.
Your influence is?
Your influence is all about your self-regard and independence, and ability to have a presence with others through your empathy.
What a wonderful way to round off this episode. The simplicity of your ABCD model. Thank you for sharing that. I know I'm going to really look at my conflict resolution, which does start with facts, by the way. So every day is a school day, even for me as a podcast host doing this for so many years. Choose courage over comfort, everybody. Let's emotionally rehearse, not just mental rehearsal. Name it to tame it. And of course, let's all continue to consider how we show up with our empathy, our compassion, and emotional intelligence. It may have been around for years, and please, please, please know that it is the modern power of the super leader within curiosity. So, David Cory, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thanks for the opportunity, Emma.
And everybody, please, if you'd like to learn more, www.eitrainingcompany.com. Check out the show notes. And of course, as always, thanks for listening.
The Coaching Podcast is sponsored by Transition Coach for Athletes, a global coaching, mentoring, and US college sporting scholarship placement service. The service helps athletes navigate the often challenging world of choosing your best college fit while maximizing sports performance. Visit www.transitioncoachforathletes.com.